Check, check, 1, 2. Mic check, 1, 2. What's up, everybody? Welcome to the FatherHood Podcast, hosted by yours truly, Adrian JB Homer. This podcast is about real fathers, real stories, and real struggles. We talk with men, and you're hearing from my perspective, and we'll be talking with other men and other parents who grew up in tough environments, fathers, mothers who came from the streets, and families with immigrant roots who are now building new lives in Canada or across North America. In my situation, I'm a child of immigrant parents that moved here to Canada for a better life from Trinidad and Jamaica. They had me when they were teenagers, and I am the product of teenage parents, of teenage immigrant parents that moved here to Canada that had me, and now fast forward, here I am with children of my own, still living in the cultural roots that I was raised on. We talk about breaking the cycles here on the FatherHood Podcast. We're going to talk about all different kind of situations and scenarios, lots of information on how to deal with things, how to approach things from a different manner, or just learning from my experience, learning about me and what I had to go through, and if that applies to your life, and if you could find similarities or value in that, then I hope that you could take away something that helps you in your situation, or just gives you some more insight or knowledge on things that you may not have known. We're going to talk about breaking the cycles, raising strong children, and becoming the fathers we may not have had. And a lot of us had amazing, tremendous fathers, and that's incredible. And some of us didn't. Some of us had fathers that were trying, that were dealing with circumstances in their own right, and they did the best that they can. And we're here products of that we can learn from those experiences and then move forward in our lives with more understanding, and maybe raise our children a little bit differently, or correct those mistakes, or raise them better than we feel we were raised, or give them a better life. If not, just following the men before you that have done a good job or have done a great job, and that's hopefully that we're going to be creating those fathers now that have done so well that their children want to emulate what they're doing. So it makes it a better generation moving forward. We're going to get into different things moving forward. The topic that we're still on, because we're doing 4 parts for the first topic, and we did parts 1 and 2 in episode 1 and 2. And this episode is episode 3, the FatherHood Podcast, episode 3. And this episode, the topic is still the influences of cultural roots on child rearing from Jamaica, Trinidad, other parts of the world, different ethnicities, and life now in Canada. And the first episode, we already did roots and traditions. Second episode, we did adapting to the Canadian environment. And this third episode, we're going to be touching on preserving cultural identity through parenting. And how can we maintain and pass on cultural identity to children in foreign and cultural environments? And we'll get into that in a little bit. Just very shortly, I'll just kind of go through. I just had my kids over the weekend. I had 4 of them with me, 4 of the younger generations, mainly teenagers. The youngest one is 9, turning 10 next month. And we had a great time as always. It's always amazing having all the children together, seeing them kind of coexist and see how excited they are to see each other, because it's been a couple weeks for most of them that they haven't seen each other. And sometimes they just stay silent, stay in their rooms, pass each other. I always make sure that I have all the meals together with the kids at the table, whether it's breakfast, lunch, dinner. And then everything in between that, snacks and all, they just run around doing whatever they want in their rooms, gaming. We play a lot of games here, game night. And those are things that sometimes as new fathers, parents, or or parents that maybe didn't do a lot of things growing up with their own parents and didn't really have all those experiences. We try to do things differently that maybe we want to do or let our children experience so that they could have a different experience in life than maybe we have, and just kind of make them look forward to things and make our lives a little bit better by doing the simple things that matter to kids. I find that game night, it seems, it might be a nuisance sometimes. Oh, okay, it's late, or not even late, but sometimes it runs a little bit late and some of the kids are tired, but they always tolerate it and they always seem to show up. Even the quiet ones. All my kids are different. Some may be more introverted than others, but no matter what, when we do things together, it allows them to be comfortable in that space. Even if they're just waiting for it to be over and go back to their gaming or whatever, at least it creates an environment that all of us are together and we share that time together. And whatever we're playing, dominoes or trouble, snakes and ladders, anything that they feel like playing. And then if you haven't done that, it might be worth trying. If you have more than one kid, or even if you just have one child, sometimes game night could just be playing cards, playing some Uno, maybe some other activities or some other things, arts and crafts. And younger kids love that. Even sometimes you'll be surprised, some of the teenage kids, they'll act like it's whatever because they're not young kids no more, but they'll get into it if it's something that interests them. Making something, you can make anything. Buy a couple blank T-shirts and some like fabric, paint, or anything that if it's young girl sparkles and little glamour things that they could kind of put little gems and different things on little jackets, shirts, anything like that. And then it creates that memory where they have that piece and they always remember when they did that and who they did it with, right? And that experience for them may be something that they carry with them for years into their adulthood. Like some of the things that we may have done when we were kids that we remember. And I remember some things like just little small things like going to summer camp and boxing when I was a kid. I may have hated it, but I remember that I realized like it was probably great for me that I learned how to do that. So it made me stronger as I was an adult or into my later years. And another thing that I love to do with the kids when they're with me, so they have that experience with dad, is I always cut them up fruits every morning. The two youngest ones wake up first, and then they're always downstairs watching cartoons on their devices, whatever they feel like doing. And I don't really pressure them to do anything. If I am going to say get off your devices or whatever, I make sure that I'm doing something with them. So I'm not just telling them to get off something and then I'm just there sitting on my phone, right? And it's fair to them to see that if I'm going to ask them to do that, that we're all doing something together, and it makes it it makes it just seem more fair in their eyes because kids are smart and they may think differently of why you're trying to tell them not to do certain things when everybody else in the world is doing it, especially you. And you can't be a hypocrite. So me, I just try to, if I'm going to ask them to stay off their tablet and maybe do something and with the fam, then we're going to all do something together. If it's game night, if it's going out to play some sports, taking a walk, going to go buy some ice cream or anything like that everybody could do it together. And those moments really count, and they'll probably mean more to our kids than we'll ever know. But I guess we just got to do it to see what starts working and what things become traditions and what things that we end up liking doing. But I try to make it a point to make it consistent and always be consistent with that. Show up, be consistent. With consistency, they can rely on that. They know it's real, that it's just not something that you just did once and they never seen again. And it creates a form of trust with them. Since these kids, if you have kids that you only see every other weekend or every weekend, they're not with you on the day-to-day. So it has, when one of my kids said, well, I don't know because I'm not here all the time, so it doesn't really feel like home. I feel like they're just going somewhere, some hotel or some place that they're just going to go see somebody a couple of days and they're gone. So with consistency, it helps to create that sense of home where they know it's here, it's theirs, it's always going to be there, and they could count on that. They could count on coming to dad's house and getting fruits in the morning and a big breakfast because it is the weekend. And it's the only weekend that I have them every other weekend. So I want to make it memorable and make it the best experience. There's never really, with my kids now, there's never really no reason to discipline or say anything else other than just support and find things to do with them. And everybody's doing something different. So finding those moments where I could find equally to spend with each of them and show them all that I care, that I'm thinking about them, that I miss them, and they're valued and they're acknowledged, and the things that they're doing count and matter. And it's important to all of us. My daughter just had a play last week and she's into arts and theater. So even something like that, she's doing it. We're going to show up. We're going to cheer. We're going to go sit through all the other plays and make sure that we watch her. So we're a part of that journey with her and she knows that she has that support. So I always just try to make sure I show up, be consistent, and be a part of their lives in any way I can. And those are things that I never really had. I remember I played a lot of sports. I did a lot of things, and my parents were probably busy, and maybe they showed up to a couple of things that I may not even remember. But I remember that I did a lot of things alone, and it was like the 80s, 90s, so you seen parents, but the sports that we were doing, it was more community-based. It wasn't private sports teams. That was very expensive for a lot of kids from the inner city back in the day, and some people were fortunate to be a part of programs that could allow them to play football or some baseball, hockey, stuff like that. I remember my brother and my cousin played hockey, and they did really well. My other brothers played basketball. I played a lot of basketball in Flemington Park. But, those were things that kept me busy as a child. And I just want to make sure that because those opportunities and those resources aren't there openly for these kids now, especially depending on where they live, none of them are living in the hood, really, so they don't have those things available to them. So it'll be a lot more effort for somebody to have to bring them to go do things like that. So I try to make sure that I continue to try to let them, experience those things. We're playing baseball, bring them to the field, sitting out there throwing pitches, letting them hit, as much as they can. We're playing basketball. Even showing them the little things like handball. Those little things I remember as a kid, you might want to play handball for like 2 hours straight. Showing them box ball, whereas baseball, or if it's just two of us, we could go to a school wall or a field that has a wall with that square box that you always see spray painted on the school walls with the X in the middle. That's the pitch, that's the strike zone, right? We used to play that a lot growing up. But yeah, just try to stay consistent and do things with them that they could count on and be a part of their life and show up to things that they want to do and be a part of their journey and support them in any way I can, and just show that, I'm excited and I'm their number one cheerleader, the number one fan. I'm always going to be there to support as long as they want me there, and just doing as much for them as possible. But yeah, we had a great time. It was a busy weekend. A lot of my brother, my dad came over. My nephew was here, so it was good seeing my nephew and my son hang out. My daughter has more friends where she goes out and does things more openly because she's getting older now. They're almost 17, so they're out more doing things. But my daughter's a little bit more introverted. She's going to all different AGO and Kensington Market and all kinds of stuff with her friends, thrifting and stuff. And my son's a little bit more reserved. So it's nice to see when I see that he has his cousins and stuff around. And you remember, too, sometimes you might be in positions where, or in places where you live where there isn't a lot of kids outside. It's not like back in the day, the kids just go run outside and figure it out, meet a couple people, and then they play for the day, come back and just eat, get some juice, some freezies or something, and run back outside. It's not the same now for them, unfortunately, for a lot of people. For some people it is, depending on where they live, but due to certain circumstances, it's not like that for everybody. So it's always good seeing my son have his cousins around where you see them bonding and connecting, playing games all night and going to the store together. So it was really good seeing that. And yeah, I hope everybody out there is having a great week and having great experiences and great times with their family, with their kids, being the best fathers that you can. And sometimes it ain't easy. It's hard out here in this world, but we got to do the best that we can and just try to survive. And remember that the only things that really matter in this life is family and love. And as long as we remember that, we'll be happy because everything else comes after. And if we could survive all this time, we'll be all right. So just remember, focus on family, love, and just doing the best that you can. That's all we can do. But yeah, so I had a great weekend with the kids. Looking forward to seeing them again. I wish I could just see them every day. I used to just, with the older kids, I used to be driving around every night, go check them before they go to bed or something, drop off some treats or something, or lunch money for school or whatever. But things have changed, and we roll with the changes and just kind of adapt to the new times that we're in, and just do the best that we can and just make it the best experience for everybody involved. But yeah, let's get into the topic though. So we're in part 3. This is episode 3 of the Fatherhood Podcast. I am Adrian JB Homer, and thank you again for tuning in. I appreciate you taking the time with me, following my journey. And I'm not perfect or any way an expert, but this is my experience on being a father. I have 7 children, and from 30 years old to 9 years old, I've done a lot of things in life, from business, entertainment, and just life. And I lived a hard life, and I've been through a lot, seen a lot, and I could have done a lot of things different in my life earlier, and I didn't. So this is my experience on learning how to become a better father, and just dealing with the new things that arise with the new times that we're in, which is like family court, support, kids growing up, relationships changing. And with family court, I'll say it takes a big toll on the people that's in your lives when you're dealing with stressful times, especially when they have nothing to do with it and it's not their problem per se. So, but they're trying to be as supportive as possible, or maybe not. Maybe they're trying not even to think about it or be a part of it because they don't want to involve that in their life or see you in that way. But it gets hard for everybody. A lot of relationships fail. And, I personally had a relationship fail. I feel like that was a great cause of it because of the strain of all the different things, having to go back and forth to family court for many years, consistently up until this day. And then them always having to relive, your partner having to relive these moments where you're having to fight with somebody that you were with previously, that you're not with, and just all those things that come out of that. And for me, my life was rock star life back in the day, growing up, being an entertainer, on road, just, trying to do things big and be the best person that I could be. So I wasn't always the best. And in those times, I wasn't necessarily the best person for my partners because maybe, it was infidelity, a lot of stuff going on. So I could have done things better, but here we are today. Everything is always for a reason, because if it wasn't meant to be, it wouldn't be. Right? So I take that with grace and just try to correct any issues or problems that I had in the past and make sure the people, I wish that everybody's happy moving forward. And I try to be happy now myself and just make sure that I try to be the best version of myself, because the best version of myself can only be best for everybody else. So I try to focus on that and just try to stay happy, positive with whatever's coming at me, and take grace that I'm here, I'm breathing. I have a lot of friends that went through a lot different situations, and again, with whatever situations that we're going through, there's always somebody going through something much worse. So with whatever situations we're going through, there's always somebody out there going through much worse. So just take grace and do the best that you can and stay diligent trying to correct all those issues that you have. We'll get into some more things about court and some tips and stuff for people out there that may need it, maybe going through some stuff right now. So stay tuned. We'll be getting into that a little bit later. First, let's just dive through these topics. So we're on Episode 3, and this is Preserving Cultural Identity Through Parenting. And first question is, how can one maintain and pass on cultural identity to children in a foreign cultural environment? So one of the ways that I think, for me personally and my family, is through the cultural identity that we'd pass on to children in a foreign cultural environment. So basically all children that came, or the parents that came from the islands, had kids here in Canada, North America. One cultural identity is food, music. So those are easy things that you could pick up on. But if you could identify other things, you could think about, have conversations with your own family, with your partners, with your kids about what the cultural identity to you is. But for me, it was maybe food or music. Those are things that we could pass on culturally because it stays in our bloodline. The things that we eat, the things that your mother made, that you try to make, that your grandmother made, your father made, the things that you love, and it's based on cultural roots from where they're from. So with the islands, it's easy. Music, it's soca, calypso from Trinidad. It's reggae, roots reggae from Jamaica, and we're here in Canada now. So when I grew up, it was a lot of just rock and roll, big '80s bands. I think the biggest urban song when I was a kid growing up was like "Lean on Me" from Club Nouveau, and then obviously the hip hop and all that stuff was starting to pick up. But it wasn't mainstream back then, so it wasn't a part of the culture necessarily. You have to find that. We have to get tapes from America, find radio stations that were in Buffalo to try to get the signals and try to hear the music and get that cultural, just black cultural identity that came from the black Americans. But for us here in Canada, it was a lot of West Indian roots. So it was a lot of food where, our food is very cultural, and Trinidad is much different than Jamaica. And the food that they eat, something similar, but in Trinidad, I learned from my grandmother, watching her as a kid, making roti, making different kinds of desserts from Trinidad, and callaloo, and not no chop up callaloo. Like Jamaican callaloo is different than Trinidadian callaloo. Trinidadian callaloo is like they mash that up into a sauce, almost like a thick sauce, and they pour that. My uncles used to pour that over all of their food. They make up a mountain on a plate. And then they pour the callaloo all over that. I remember it was the most disgusting thing to see as a kid. I was like, oh, it's that all green mush thing. And then I grew up and I love that. I love it. It's the best thing in the world to me when I eat that with food. And that's something that I'll pass on and my kids will pick up on. Some of them won't, some of them will. And maybe others will pick up on some rum cake from Jamaica, or even my grandmother from Trinidad actually made all the rum cake. My Jamaican grandparents never made it, but it was in that culture. But, different things from different cultures will stay in the identity and will be passed on for generations to come as they have been. And that's always a good thing to see. Clothes, sometimes even the language, especially if you speak a different language, the kids learn it, then they get to pass that on to their kids, and that becomes a part of the cultural identity as well. And, the next question, and that's all the things that kind of identify with that remains the same here in this foreign environment, which is Canada. So foreign for the islands is Canada, America, and you could see what applies to your life as well. The next question would be, what methods help preserve traditions and customs while keeping a connection to cultural roots? And again, just like we're saying, just making sure that we teach our kids the music that came from the cultural roots of our parents or where we're from, making them eat the food and be familiar with the food, that we're not just no hot dogs and just hamburgers or whatever it is that's in the countries that they're in now. We make sure that they eat the rice and peas, the rotis, the curry chicken, the jerk chicken once in a while if they like the spice, but stewed chicken, dumpling, ackee and saltfish. And at least they know what it is, so they know it's a part of their identity. They may not like it as kids. Porridge. I used to hate porridge as a kid, but growing up, I love it now. I love a peanut porridge or a cornmeal porridge. But those are things that we could help to kind of implement in our kids so that they continue to pass them on. Obviously, history and just knowledge. There's a lot of history from our different backgrounds, the people that were important to us that made an impact, that came from those cultural roots. In Trinidad, I can't really think of people other than just soca artists that have like real profound names. But for instance, from Jamaica, it's people like Marcus Garvey and things like that made a great impact. Bob Marley, because you would see is more than just kind of a reggae artist. It was kind of like a revolutionary person that bridged the gaps between society and people and just all the different ethnicities. Kind of they could all come together and say one love, right? So those are things we could make sure our kids know and value, so that they could pass it on to their kids after we're gone. They could stay connected to those cultural roots. And those are some of the methods that I use, just making sure when I got my kids with me, it might be Sunday morning. I usually kind of keep it Sunday or Saturday morning when I'm just cleaning up, cooking. And I cook from scratch a lot of the time, so they see me in the kitchen preparing everything and doing everything. And I'll just play some old school reggae, some One Drop Foundation music. And that's just all culture, like Garnet Silk, Barris Hammond. Or I don't really play soca or calypso, but I'm sure like most Trinidadian family would do the same thing. But I grew up on more reggae as like for that kind of calming music. So Sunday mornings I play a lot of reggae, and even a lot of Trinidadians listen to reggae too. So it's a West Indian thing. So we listen to a lot of old school reggae, just lovers rock, just nice roots culture, nothing too slack or crazy, and just kind of give them that vibe. And what I notice when I play that, everybody gets calm. The energy is very, very calm and flowing, and everybody seems to like that vibe. So those are things that I continue to try to implement and keep a part of the life with the kids, so that they are identifying with that as well. And then maybe when they get older, subconsciously they won't even know why they love old school reggae so much, and they just start playing it when they're with their kids or when they're relaxing. And those are things and ways that we could preserve those traditions and those connections to cultural roots. But yeah, so that was the third part for the first topic, and that's the first topic again is the influence of cultural roots on child rearing, Jamaica, Trinidad, and life in Canada. And that's for me, but anything could apply to you. It's Sri Lanka, India, it could be Africa, it could be Greece, Italy, Spain, South America, all the different countries, Ecuador, Costa Rica, wherever you're from, those cultural roots, how do you preserve those cultural roots here for your children, in this new land, right? But yeah, so that was that topic, and next episode we'll get into the part 4, which will conclude that topic 1, and then we'll get into a lot of different topics. We're gonna have some other guests, other speakers here, and again, for anybody out there that may find value in this, that have services that could help parents, fathers, in their struggles with child support or any other means that you find may be suitable for parents, fathers, mothers that need any kind of resources, feel free to reach out. We're happy to accept sponsors to be able to offer their resources, their services to people that may be watching that and may need that service. Again, I'm Adrian JB Homer, and I thank you for tuning into the FatherHood Podcast, and we'll get into some more topics. These are things that you could even ask yourself, and you could have discussions with your friends, family, your children, and you could kind of, I guess just have some kind of conversation and connection with that, and just start remembering things. And maybe you could ask even your parents about these things too, right? So these are questions for all of us. I'm going to answer in my way, and you watching wherever you are, you could feel free to talk about this, put a pin on it, and walk through it as well with your partner or whoever you're watching it with, and see how it applies to you. But yeah, so one of the questions is background and personal journey. What was your upbringing like? And how did your environment shape the man and father you are today? So my upbringing, I was raised in Flemington Park in the 80s. The crack epidemic happened. There's a lot of stuff going on. My Trinidadian family that lived in Flemington Park with me ended up moving. I remember my aunt was very successful and very driven. So she got a house in Brampton. She might have been only in her early 20s when she bought that house, when I'm thinking about it back then. And then she moved everybody that was living in Flemington Park with her. My grandmother, my uncles all moved with her. My dad was floating around doing whatever he was doing. And I remember I was left in Flemington Park. I still was there living, and I remember that was home to me. So regardless of where my mother moved after that, I remained in Flemington Park and always just stayed there. If I had to stay with friends or do whatever. And being around that, because my father was still young and trying to figure his self out, I was kind of left on like in the block on the turf and raised with the wolves, if you would say. So there's a lot of action going on, a lot of stuff going on. I started doing things way too early. From when I was 13, I was on the turf. And I remember school, I wasn't the best at staying in school, but I would try to go until I didn't. And then, back then it was a lot of trying to change from one school to the next. The school doesn't let you win. You have to end up going to, other schools that maybe didn't want to, and then you find reasons not to go. And because of that, wandering, I was raised with the wolves and all the older guys outside that I seen as successful in my eyes because they may have been getting money, driving nice cars, if they lived on their own, in their own place or whatever it was, or apartment or house or whatever. And you see these things, the older guys giving us young guys money, go McDonald's, go here, you man, here, hold this and that. So then you feel pride and you feel a brotherhood and sense of family, and you just naturally start doing the same thing. So I started doing the same things that I seen in Flemington Park in the 80s, early 90s. And one thing about me, I was driven. I was very driven and motivated to be the best that I could be at anything that I was doing. I played a lot of sports, and I was fortunate that the guys in Flemington Park arranged that they started the hood leagues. So we had basketball leagues that was basically like, any high school basketball team, but we were just kids in the hood, in the neighborhoods. And they would organize that with all the different neighborhoods. It'd be Flemington Park against Regent Park, against Jane and Finch, against Falstaff, against any other community that was big enough to have a resource center or a community center that could have a basketball team. We won all the time. The only team that would beat us was Jungle. And I remember back in the day, the guys from Jungle, we always thought they were way older than us. We'd be like 15, and guys coming on the court with full beards and mustaches. All the older guys said, "Yo, get the birth certificate, check him, I'm too old, da da da." And then I remember all those good times. But a lot of great athletes came from that. And even though it seemed like it was the hood leagues, we were very supported from the guys in the area. Used to buy our uniforms for us, take us on the make sure that we got to the games in other areas. And, big up to my big homie, Mike C. Baba. I remember I really looked up to him. And, he did a lot. Paul G., Bumpy, those guys were our coaches, and they did a lot. There's a lot of great people that came from that guidance that was living in real harsh environments back then. And if we didn't have them, I don't know what we'd be doing. I don't know, how long we would survive out there. It was very harsh. But yeah, so those things help shape me as a father now and the man I am now. Just being thoughtful, looking out for others, having that sense of brotherhood. And if I have it, you have it. If I have a door open, come through. And making sure that we do better for our kids than was done for us, and making our kids have different experiences that we may not have had or wanted to have. And those are things that are important, because we want to break the chain, break the cycles of things that we may not have liked in the past. But yeah, it was interesting coming up And that's how it shaped me growing up in Flemington Park to be the man I am today. And just having the values and remembering that I took pride in my family. And on my mother's side, a couple of my aunts were pastors. Everyone really took care of each other. If one have, we all have. So those are things that I apply to my life now that help me be a better man. And just that sense of unity and just, I guess, pride. I was prideful of my name. I was prideful of my family. And because I was ambitious, I was prideful of the area I grew up in and seeing the things and experiencing the things that I did. And those helped me be the man and the father I am today. Another question is, for fathers who grew up, or fathers or mothers who grew up around street culture or survival environments, what was the moment that made you realize you wanted to be, or you wanted a different life for your kids? And again, for me, I never would want my kids to be young teenagers being out on the road doing whatever I was doing. I couldn't even imagine my kids now doing some of the things that I did as a child and seeing them now so protected. And maybe they're just way smarter than me and they're able to hide things and it's kind of like, oh no, Dad, I'm good, da, 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 and just quiet and act quiet and do whatever they want. But I sense and I know that they're great children and they're doing far better things than I ever did when I was their age. I was just praising them this weekend when they were with me and telling them that regardless of the grades that they get in school, just try their best, and they're all doing great. And my nephew was here too, and he's like, school's all right, da, da, da. I said, you know what, you're in school, you made it further than a lot of us, because I didn't even make it through grade 9. I don't even think I have a credit. Maybe I have 1-2 credits, maybe, from gym or something like that, but I don't remember any of that. And seeing them thrive and go through exams in high school and study and do all of that, it makes me proud to know that they're trying more and becoming better than I was. So the cycle is already broken and they're becoming better people or doing differently than I've done. And I hope that I see them continue to progress and do the best that they can. And one example is my daughter. And, I'm proud of all of my kids. And my daughter made it into university for engineering. And that was a great accomplishment. And I've seen her on her journey and doing a lot of medical competitions and different things and being around them kids that it's insane for them, the amount of work and effort that they got to put into it. So I was very proud to see that she made it. She's probably one of the only black girls that made it into the engineering program in a very reputable school here in Ontario. And I was proud for me to see them, and that was different for her that I didn't. So it was good to see that we could push them and try to get that money. And fortunately, I was able to contribute through whatever way that I had to contribute for that university fund for her. And seeing her do that and being able to, I remember it was hard for us because of the courts and all of that and the things going on with me and her mother. But I remember when she went to school and she was finally in that dorm with her friends and not around the home environment where it may have kind of been tainted with family court and battles through struggle of support and custody and stuff, where she finally reached out to me. I haven't spoken to her for probably 2-3 years before that. It was hard. And then when she got to university, I remember she reached out and said, Dad, I'm here in university now. I got in and, I'd love for us to go to dinner. And then I got to take her out for dinner and pick her up from the dormitory. And that was a real surreal experience for me. And I was so proud. And even if it was the only time that I'm going to see her in that light again, at least I know that she reached out and we had that moment that I could tell her how proud I was and try to contribute however I can to make sure that her life is easier. And I hope to continue to, to build and see all of my kids grow and do whatever they want. And I'm here to support all of them any way I can. And, it was cool. So those are some of the things that, what made me realize I wanted a different life for my kids was realizing what I went through that wasn't necessary. What I thought was cool or was or was mandatory growing up had nothing to do with anything and was irrelevant in life if I chose to do something else. So just realizing the amount of hardship or risk that I had to take growing up, it made me realize I would never want my kids to do the same. So that made me want a different life for my kids, what I had to go through, and making sure that I was more protective of them, giving them a better life, trying to do better things in my life that would reflect for them and set the better example that they would want to follow. So purposely doing things like growing up on the street, a lot of guys may hustle and do different things. And when your kids grow up and get older, what do you think they want to do, right? Especially if they love if they love you and look up to you. So I remember my eldest son, when he was young, trying to get into certain badness and certain things on the road and getting in trouble. And I remember one time I had to bail him out, and it was a friend that helped me bail him out. Big up to Nia. And I remember saying to him, why are you doing this? These things have already been done many times, and it doesn't have to be done anymore. You could do something different. You don't have to be a part of this life or think that you need to. You could do anything else in the world or in life, and you're going to succeed. You're going to do great, and you're going to live a better life than what you think you're going to get from this. I remember after that, it was hard because he's probably around friends that, may have their own influence and doing whatever they're doing. And I remember just kind of just staying with it and showing him, hey, look, I could do different things too. And I remember I had to realize I have to show him examples. So I had to do things and humble myself and do different things that made him see me in a different light, so that he realized that, oh, I could do things too, just that are not bad or not going to risk my freedom or life or anything like that. I remember when he started working at a bar, and he had to, I don't know what kind of, whatever it was, but most of his friends worked, and he'll work maybe sometimes at a dealership or car dealership or whatever, as just as the mechanic side of things or doing whatever. But I remember when he started working, and then he started getting his own independence, his own money, and then he was able to travel. And then just seeing him do that was amazing to me. And it made a world of difference, where I was so, so proud of him. I'm still proud of him. We've been through different programs. He's engineering now for sound and recording. And he's just an intelligent young man, like all my children. And even if they weren't applying themselves to stuff like that and they wanted to do whatever, if he wants to be an artist, and some of my kids want to be artists, and I'm here to support it. I'm not here to kill anybody's dreams. If you want to do it and it's something that's inside of you that you're desiring to do and you're passionate about, I'll just say go for it. But go hard with it and make sure that you're putting your all and you're really living it. And with parents, we can't live our children's dreams more than they are. So we just got to kind of let them take the lead, let them hold the wheel and drive. And they'll tell us when, or if they're serious about something or not. But just giving them the option to be able to try different things and see that he's supported, that nothing's a burden, nothing's going to be bothersome to me especially and the family. And then they get to kind of spread their wings, and they get to feel and see what they like, what they don't like. Sometimes, both of my daughters, they say, oh, they want to act. Both of them, they want to play guitar, they want to make film. And it's very interesting that both of them almost did everything identical, even though they're separated, where they don't live together, or they've not really been growing up together over the last some years because of the situations with court, and my daughter siding with just staying there with her mother and kind of being isolated from the rest of the fam. But they all doing the same things, and it's so interesting to see. But it's easy for me to support because I love anything that they do, and I'm here to support it no matter what it is. So those are some cool things that, you could ask yourself. And another question is if your parents immigrated to North America, what sacrifices did you see them make growing up? So sacrifices come in many different forms. Maybe they sacrifice education because they had you young, like my parents, and they weren't able to pursue higher education, go to university because maybe they didn't have the support, or maybe it was too expensive at the time, and now they have some other responsibilities that they got to take care of, right? There's children involved now. Maybe it could be jobs, travel. Maybe they wanted to be other places in the world. And now with the commitment of children, they got to stay and kind of figure things out differently. And sacrifices, I guess, I seen my parents make because they were young was probably more school or different careers, where they maybe have felt that they had to find whatever they had to do to be able to support or to just to survive. I know my mother probably made a lot more sacrifices because she was there throughout the entire time of my childhood. I had to live with her and stay with her even when my father wasn't around. But I don't know, there's a lot of different sacrifices that parents could make. So what sacrifices do you think your parents made, to make your life better, or while you were growing up, what did you, when they immigrated to America, to Canada or North America, what sacrifices did you see them make growing up? Another question is, how did those sacrifices influence you on how you, how did those sacrifices influence how you approach parenthood today? And I say parenthood, but for me it's fatherhood. So how did those sacrifices influence on how you approach fatherhood today? So for me, I guess I repeated the same pattern. I had kids early. I wasn't able to go to school, or not, it wasn't able, but maybe my mind wasn't there. I was doing different things. So you could ask yourself that question. For me, I guess those sacrifices would make me just want to make sure that my children get the most education that they can, because now we know with better education comes better opportunities, especially if it's educational based opportunities, like you gotta be a doctor, a lawyer, you need education for that. Now we're in a time where we don't need to be strict or hard on our kids about so much education per se, because a lot of the new jobs that are being created are new. They have nothing to do with education or any traditional school. Somebody just, they're doing all these new things. Look, we're doing podcasts now. That was never invented. It was never a thing back in the day. It wasn't even a word. I don't even remember when this word was even created. When was the word podcast created? These are new things that are happening in the world. There's all these new social media influencers and different jobs that are formed in and around that. That was never in existence before. So, just making sure that we keep an open mind, because the things that were meant for us, or the things that were available to us, or that seemed normal for us as children growing up, for opportunities for things to do, are different than our kids today. There's lots of different opportunities. There's a lot of different things in existence that they could do now. And that's how those sacrifices influence, or that's how those sacrifices influence how I approach fatherhood today, is seeing what they didn't or weren't able to do because of having kids early, and me kind of encouraging my kids to do as much as they can before they have children, so that they could have the best quality of life and the best experience possible. And whatever's meant to be will be. So there's never an age limit that's bad or wrong or whatever. It's whatever's going to be will be. And everything in the universe is planned and written. So we're just walking through it as the moments present themselves. Just stay aware, stay consciously aware of the things around you, so that you could identify when certain things are happening, and you could make the best out of it at those times. Another question is, what were some of the biggest struggles you faced transitioning from survival mode or street life to family life? So I wouldn't call them sacrifices or struggles. Sorry. What were some of the biggest struggles you faced transitioning from survival street mode to family life? So some of the, I guess the easy things to talk about was just maybe changing the things that you found comfortable. So struggles when you're dealing with survival mode, maybe different ways of making money. There might be faster ways of making money than other ways. So you may have been used to that. And you may struggle to transition to, a 9 to 5 from when you're doing something else that's faster paced. You got to learn a budget, and you got to learn now that there's people that depend and rely on you. Everything that you do has to be for the better for the people in your life, your children, your family. So those are things that I had to learn, that it wasn't just about me. And even when I was a child, having kids at 17, having my first kid, it was still about him, but it was still about me. I'm still a kid. I'm still probably a little bit selfish. I still want nice clothes or whatever, or be cool around my friends, and things that I may not have thought about. Should have been more focused on my child or the best quality of life for them, and transitioning into that family life where I would have probably paid more attention, had better relationships. And other struggles, everybody has different struggles, financial, emotional struggles. Some guys are used to being playboys, having different, women or whatever it may be, going out all the time. And you gotta change that. When you gotta be home, and you gotta be consistent, and you gotta be reliable for somebody else other than yourself. So you gotta kind of change that and make hard choices to change your life so that you're doing it for somebody else and you're thinking about other people, not yourself. So there's a lot of different things that could apply to that. And then in the next episode, we'll get into other questions that you could kind of take away, and you could kind of sit on and think about, have discussions. But yeah, being a parent isn't easy. Being a father isn't easy. Shout out to all the amazing mothers out there that help make our job easier. That's always holding it down, always making sure that there's a home and a roof over the kid's head, because sometimes the fathers mess up, and we mess up bad. Sometimes just being ethnic, we deal with a lot of different social, racial discrimination or systemic racism that now we could find ways around it, and everybody, oh, you just got to do it. Sometimes it's like that. Sometimes it ain't. Sometimes people just look at you and just treat you the way that they think in their mind they should, because based on other experiences or other racial discrimination that they're used to in their upbringing, especially being raised in these white countries, and you're being ethnic. Because we're in these countries that, we all know, North America belonged to the indigenous, overtaken by, the English or Caucasian, and now as immigrants or children of the immigrants, we're here having to deal with that, right? So it's different when we're in our own countries or cultural backgrounds, and we could feel a little bit more free. But for a lot of the people like me that wants to be successful and face challenges, because maybe it's harder for me to conform or to be the nice go-lucky or happy-go-lucky guy and just accept anything. And sometimes it comes with more resistance and just different ways of just trying to be better, but be accepted for who we are and be able to have the best opportunities and experiences that, I feel like being Canadian, I should have all the rights of a Canadian, but it's not the same rights as a Caucasian Canadian sometimes. And we see that. It's people try to tell you differently, but we see that. And I've done a lot of things in life where it was very clear. So shout out to all the mothers that help make our lives easier by making sure they're watching the kids, taking care of them on a daily basis, and doing more for them than we ever did or could, and making sure that that home is sound. Shout out to all the amazing mothers out there. I appreciate you. And all my kids' mothers are amazing. Even though we're going through stuff, I really, really appreciate them and think that they're amazing for all the things that they do for my kids. My kids always eat. They always got clothes on their back. And even in times if I'm struggling and I can't do as much as I want to, they're always okay. And shout out to the grandparents and all the families that help make that possible as well. We don't discredit, and we acknowledge you, and we thank you and appreciate you for everything that you do. But yeah, we'll get into some more topics in the next episode 4, and this is episode 3 of the FatherHood Podcast with yours truly, Adrian JB Homer. And I want to thank you guys again for tuning in, and we'll get into a lot more things. I'm looking forward to having some guests on the show that now we can start going back and forth and get other people's experiences and different outlooks on life and cultural background, cultural roots from different ethnicities, because we all are living different lives. And it'd be cool to see, because we all need to hear different experiences so we could kind of see where we're at. Does it apply? Maybe we could do things better. Maybe we're doing things amazing. And just continue to do the best you can, and I'll get into a couple little court things. So I guess today's little gem, we'll talk about what happens when you get served, right? Sometimes it just blindsides you. You just get a knock on your door, you get an email, and all of a sudden your life changes. And somebody says, "Here, you've been served." So you get these documents for court. The other parent is bringing you to court for support, for custody. There may be, depending on your situation, it might be a lot of different things, from all different kind of ranges of things. But whatever it may be, for fathers that, from my perspective, my experience, when I got served the first time, I felt like it was an attack. I didn't know what to do. And I felt more like it was malicious, vindictive actions against me. And I wanted to almost protest it by not caring about it. But I found out that that's what I shouldn't do. And you gotta take action and try to be as proactive as possible with it. So, you get served, depending on your situation. It might say various different things. I want full custody of my kid. You can't see him. Maybe they're just, whatever the situations may be, all different kind of situations, right? I need child support. You haven't been doing nothing, or I want this and that. And that's totally fair and totally fine. It could be either party doing the same thing to each other. But what happens when you get served is you should either contact a lawyer if you're able to, and if you're God bless you, you think you have the ability to represent yourself or deal with it. It may not be as serious as some situations. You just need to just kind of fill out the court documents and just get the process over with. You get served, they create a motion for you, and what you got to do now is go reply to that. So you could always go to the courts wherever you're served, and you could ask the people at the clerk desk, what do I need to present to reply or respond to this? And then they'll give you the court documents that you need, and you could fill them out yourself and do your best. Try to leave it less emotion as possible when you're filling out the forms in response, and just straight facts. And facts is still no emotion or real. Just tell them what it really is, and if there's things that of concern, you could list those things as well to make sure, like, you don't have to hide or have things in secret because everything's already out. One time a lawyer told me, they already basically they're already spilling all of your business. It's already all out in the open. So you might as well just say what you have to say, as long as it's within respect and and compose it in a manner that is professional, somewhat, so that it could be read by a judge or a lawyer. And that's if you're going to respond by yourself, and then you got to make sure you keep the emotion out of it, keep it fact based, and respond, and then get that help from the clerks at the courts to make sure that you respond properly in a timely manner. And then they'll probably serve you again in response to that, because they're allowed to. And then it's a big hassle, and but you just got to do it. You got to take off that day of work and hope that you don't lose your job or whatever. Make sure that the people are aware of that, because when people hear family court or they know you got to go to court, they'll be a little bit more understanding. Just let them know the days that you got to be there. And in a better situation, if you have a lawyer, or if you don't have a lawyer, you could apply for legal aid, and just make sure you make less than 15,000 a year to apply for legal aid. Or if you could afford a lawyer, reach out, get a lawyer that's on your side, that feels, at least that they're there to help you get through this, not just taking your money, don't care, treating you, talking to you harsh. Find somebody with compassion. You could have a little bit of time to do that. Even if you need to find a lawyer, you could put that in the court documents too. Say, I need time to find a lawyer to help represent myself the best that I can. But the best thing would be to get a lawyer, let them know that you've been served, and if you could pay them their retainer from $1,000 to $3,000 for that first month or so, or first couple court hearings, and God willing, it's done as soon as possible, so you don't have to continue spending. But then you just let them handle that. Let them know everything. And back to one of the first gems, proactively, you could set up child support payments through Family Responsibility Office, where it's documented, so that you never have to worry about somebody saying that you didn't give them what you've been giving them. And if you think your child is in danger, or may need, or you can't have access to your child, and you're being kind of the door shut on you, you do have options. You don't have to break down the door and then face getting into other legal problems. You could call Children's Aid Society and then ask them to contact the mother for you, so that they could reach out and let the mother know that what they're doing isn't right, and that they're concerned about the children. As long as it's not malicious, then sometimes you got to do those things to make sure, because we don't know a lot of times the mental state of some other people, and some people are just doing things maliciously, and it's not right. But you got to do what you got to do sometimes, especially when there's kids involved. And we all do whatever we got to do, but stay proactive, and just try to stay positive through it. Remember that you love your kids, and you want them to have the best quality of life. And if they're living with their mothers, you want them to have the best quality of life with their mothers too. But just make sure you have that track record of things, and do your due diligence. So if you're served, go to the court as soon as you can within that week. It's almost like getting into an accident. You never know that's happening until it happens, and you got to go report it, right? So that insurance and all that stuff will actually acknowledge it. So same type of thing. You got to go to the court, make sure that you have all the paperwork and forms that you need. And the good thing about all of this is that it's court. So even if it's something that you don't like, you could always file the right documents to help change that, or to try to change that and make it into your favor. And you never know till you get to court, because the judge will decide. But just present your case as best as you can, and show them how much you love your kids. You could add pictures and proof of things that you've done for your kids. If it's activities, extracurricular, that shows that they're in your life. And if it's support letters from your family or different people that they're a part of that life too, I would say try. It won't help to at least show that you've been a part of this kid's life, because a lot of times the lawyers make the other party lie, and then you'll read it, and then you'll get triggered, because they'll be talking all kinds of outlandish claims and stuff that ain't true. but you got to just deal with it and make sure that, you're dealing with it in the correct manner so that your side of the story could also be told. And just do your best. Stay diligent. If you need, more consultation and advice on these type of things to help walk you through or help guide you to resources or find a lawyer, you could always hit me up, contact me, send a message, send a comment. I could contact you privately, and we could set up a consultation where we could help guide you through all of those steps to make sure that you're doing the best that you can, even finding somebody that could help serve the other party and just showing you what other options you may have that you may not know. And I didn't know, and, I've hired many lawyers trying to deal with this, and some I feel like you're not on my side. Or I remember I hired one lawyer who was like friends with the opposition lawyer. I couldn't believe it. I had to go to what's going on here. Why wouldn't you tell me that? And they had to give me back my money. But you just never know, and you're going to go through changes in life, but you got to stay diligent and stay on top of it and make sure that you display or, you present your side of things as well, and then let them decide on that. And it'll get sticky in courts. They're going to go through financials. They're going to ask you to show you all your guts, all your transactions and your bank accounts and all of that. So just be prepared. All your NOAs, your notice assessments, your tax papers. If you have businesses, they're going to ask for all of that stuff. So keep that in mind and move accordingly. Okay? But yeah, I hope that helped. And anyway, again, you could always reach out. I'm here to help. And again, this is my experience, my life in fatherhood, and the things that I have gone through. And I hope that your experiences are amazing for you, and my experience as a father is amazing. It's just some of the things that come up in life we got to deal with. And if we don't know, we got to learn on the way. But if we have people that are going through similar things, and at least we can learn and kind of pick up on things and help navigate ourselves through situations a little bit easier or better, where we have better outcomes and situations in it. So blessings to all the parents, to all the fathers out there. You're doing an amazing job. Do the best that you can. Spend time with those kids, take walks, and what I try to do at minimal is I try to FaceTime my kids every night, and whoever I can, right? Some of the kids I was under court order that I could only talk to them twice a week through FaceTime and another visitation. But even on those days, I let them know that the other siblings that might pop up on the FaceTime with them too, and just to show them that they're thought about, they're being cared about, and I'm waiting to see you, and I love you with all my heart, right? So sometimes as simple as a FaceTime. We're in 2026 now. There's lots of technology. Yeah, sometimes I'm on the FaceTime with 3-4 of my kids all at once, so they get to talk to each other, and it helps to help keep that bond and that consistency. They know Dad's going to call every night, and they know I'm going to say goodnight to them and ask them how their day was, and they get to talk to each other, and it forms a bond that we may not know how important it is now, but later on in life, that may present itself. So again, shout out to all the parents, all the fathers, all the mothers, big up, and all the grandparents and great grandparents, big up yourself. And I'm wishing you guys an amazing week, and I'll see you next episode at episode 4. And again, this is episode 3. And you have been tuned into the FatherHood Podcast with yours truly, Adrian JB Homer. Thanks again for watching. Peace.